Many were wondering what Sarah Palin would have to say after the January 8, 2011 Tucson shooting that left 6 people dead, 15 injured, and Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords in intensive care with a gunshot wound to the head. While many politicians immediately released statements, Palin simply removed the now infamous target map from her Facebook page and replaced it with a note of condolence. 3 days later, she released a video statement to the public. No doubt Palin and her speechwriter spent the previous 3 days working on it. There was some expectation that she would tell us if, in her views, a public figure's words could influence some people's behavior at all. After all, from space.
We have a unique vantage point here aboard the International Space Station. As I look out the window, I see a very beautiful planet that seems very inviting and peaceful. Unfortunately, it is not. These days we're constantly reminded of the unspeakable acts of violence and damage we can inflict upon one another, not just with our actions, but also with our irresponsible words.
And Mrs. Giffords herself had said,
They really need to realize that the rhetoric and firing people up and, even things, for example, we're on Sarah Palin's targeted list, but the thing is that the way that she has it depicted has the crosshairs of a gun sight over our district. And when people do that, they've got to realize there's consequences to that action.
One way to judge how much understanding a person shows in a statement is to focus only on the sentences that contain the word I. Let's combine them together and see what happens. On an 8-minute speech that contains some 1,400 words, Sarah Palin used the word I in 7 sentences out of 60, which gives us approximately 90% of her sentences without the word I. Once combined together, we get a 150-word speech. Here it is.
Like millions of Americans, I learned of the tragic events in Arizona on Saturday. I agree with the sentiment shared yesterday at the beautiful Catholic Mass held in honor of the victims. Like many, I spent the last few days reflecting on what happened, praying for guidance. After the shocking tragedy, I listened at first puzzled, then with concern, and now with sadness, to the irresponsible statements from people attempting to apportion blame for this terrible event. Now, President Obama and I may not agree on everything, but I know he would join me in affirming the health of our democratic process. As I said while campaigning for others last March in Arizona during a very heated primary race, I said we know violence isn't the answer. When we take up our arms, we're talking about our vote. Just days before she was shot, Congresswoman Giffords read the First Amendment on the floor of the House, and it was a beautiful moment, and more than simply symbolic, as some claim, to have our Constitution read by our Congress. I am confident she knew that reading our sacred Charter of Liberty was more than just symbolic.
This exercise of analyzing the use of I in a speech can be quite revealing. What is glaringly obvious is her failure to acknowledge the responsibility that a public figure has for their rhetoric, violent or not. The only statement regarding responsibility is directed as an attack against those that suggest that a public figure has a responsibility to tone their rhetoric.
And now, with sadness, to the irresponsible statements from people attempting to apportion blame.
The only other persons she mentions and with whom she compares her views are not one, but 2 presidents.
President Reagan, President Obama.
Me and 2 other presidents share the same wisdom. She is cut from the same cloth.
The last election, during elections, and after the election, last election. Transition of power at the ballot box. Campaigning for others last March, very heated primary race. We're talking about our vote. Yet party was victorious. Last November, the other party won. It's to do again in the next election, and the next.
This morning's statement sounds more like an announcement.
I'm the right man to fill that job opening.
Isn't sincerity still spelled with an I?
As we did just 2 months ago, and as our Republic enables us to do again in the next election, and the next.
We have a unique vantage point here aboard the International Space Station. As I look out window, I see a very beautiful planet that seems very inviting and peaceful. Unfortunately, it is not. These days we're constantly reminded of the unspeakable acts of violence and damage we can inflict upon one another, not just with their actions, but also with their irresponsible words. We're better than this. We must do better.
Have no mercy in this land. He lead us standing there crying in this land. Lead us standing there crying in this land. He gone your house all day long. Look in the bedroom, find your lover gone that don't have no mercy in this land.